It's time.
Bring the wood. Bring the hammer. Hammer down.
You know who brings the hammer all the time, OG?
The Navy.
Absolutely. On behalf of the men and women here in the basement, making this podcast for your entertainment. I could say edutainment.
And education.
I don't like edutainment. I don't. Nah.
We're not an edutainment podcast.
No. Let's go for entertainment with some education along with it. But on behalf of the men and women making this project, people that make this all go, helping our country, a big shout out to the men and women in our armed forces. And also on behalf of Navy Federal Credit Union, OG, let's go stack some Benjamins, huh?
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and it's giving season. But how do you decide where to give your hard-earned dollars? What questions should you ask a charitable cause? We'll help you give better with the author of The Philanthropy Revolution, Lisa Greer. Plus, feel like you're underpaid? In today's headline segment, we'll share one way some people have doubled their income. And of course, I'll also make sure there's time for my amazing trivia. And now, two guys who are already givers of high fives instead of paying raises because, and I quote, they're the same thing and you can't get taxed on them. It's Joe and O-G.
We had Mel Robbins on last week, and she talked about how important high fives are, OG, so
we have started incorporating that.
Why hold back? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the We Might Have Misunderstood That Conversation podcast. I'm Joe Salciha, Average Joe Money on Twitter, and across the card table from me for another Monday, kicking off another week, ready to go. It's Mr. OG.
Ready to rock and roll.
We were going to record video, and you said, I'm not ready for video today. You're looking good. You look fine.
Nice of you to say. But yeah, I got some work to do up here. Got to glam up a little bit.
There's nothing that's going to get better. I mean, I don't want to spoil the ending, but
can you believe that it's already the fourth quarter?
It is fantastic. It's pumpkin spice latte season, my friend.
It's been that since September 1st. It's almost peppermint latte season.
It is. See, now we go from sweet to just too sweet. I can't do the peppermint. We've had this. This is a recurring annual conversation we have.
I like them more in theory than in
practice.
Yeah. Like when I get one, I'm like, this is awesome. And then I feel like there's so much more milk in my belly right now. I need to take a nap.
You get about a third of the way done. You're like, I think I've had
shakes. I got the shakes from the espresso and the sugar.
I've had my sugar intake for the last 3 months.
So much lactose.
It's just so good. So much lactose, so little time. You know what other quarter it is? It's giving quarter. A lot of people plan their giving for this time of year. We've got Lisa Greer coming down to the basement. Oh, gee, she's somebody who has had over 200 events at her home, turns a lot of people into philanthropists. But she also talks about how bad the business of raising money is and how disconnected it is from what we all want. In fact, there's a bunch of money sitting in donor advised funds right now because people can't figure out what they really, really want to do with the money. Lisa Greer here today to talk about that. But we got a heck of a headline. We've got the TikTok minute, so much to do, so little time. So let's roll into it. But first,
this episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boys Breakfast Meal and Huntrix Meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Well, running a small business, as you may know, like I do, it is super fun, but it can also be very tough. And when it's time to get a loan, it can feel impossible to find the lender that you actually trust. Big banks say no. The internet, well, that's full of sketchy offers with sky-high rates and fine print you can barely read. Whether you need help covering payroll, managing cash flow, or investing in growth, you deserve better. And that's why I recommend the small business marketplace Fundera, which is powered by NerdWallet. It's a free, easy-to-use platform. It lets you compare real financing offers from trusted lenders, and it's all in one place. And what I like is that you don't need perfect credit to get started. There's no spam. There's no bait and switch. Just personalized options that fit your business needs. Nothing I like better than a place that treats me the way that they would want to be treated. Using Fundera is a super way to quickly compare options and make your best funding move the way any great business owner would. Here's the best part, though. For a limited time, when you visit nerdwallet.com/SB and fill out the no obligation form, you're going to get VIP treatment and talk with a real person who knows all the ins and outs of small business lending. And you can tell them specifically what you're looking for. They can tell you specifically which options you should probably consider most. Don't risk your business on unreliable lenders. Go to nerdwallet.com/SB to learn more and find the funding you deserve. Fundera Inc. NMLS ID number 1240038. All right, we checked that box off. Now we can roll into it. Let's move.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
This is what I love about this show, is that so much of it is user created. Today, friends of ours brought us a lot of stuff. Patrick wrote me an email. I thought, oh, gee, this would be good to talk about. This comes to us from the Wall Street Journal. It's a piece that's written by Rachel Feinzig. These people who work from home have a secret. I'm not going to read the rest of the headline because it gives it away. But let's say that you're the average person in America. Do you know how big the average merit-based raise is in America?
Merit-based raise. How big it is? Like percentages,
yeah,
I guess?
Yeah, percentage.
I don't know. I've no concept.
I looked this up while doing some research.
I don't get merit-based raises. I haven't in ever, so I wouldn't know.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average merit-based pay raise is 3%. I went and dug that up because what Rachel's going to talk about, the secret that people have, is that, well, you don't get really big raises, even when you do a great job for your company. And if you're somebody that does really well for your company, you get paid maybe, 10% more, maybe 10% more. What do you think?
You've got to offset inflation, I think, as an employer, right? You've got to have some sort of a finger on the pulse of what's really happening in your community. And if you're a large organization and you've got people in different areas, it's very common to have different pay scales. There's a lot of that going on during the height of the pandemic where people were getting paid in San Francisco dollars, but living in Denver, because they could work from anywhere. So they were like, I'll just work from here and get my bigger salary because it's adjusted.
And that makes sense to me, by the way. I mean, I don't understand. I seriously don't understand these companies that penalize people. If you're going to let them work from anywhere, why do you give them a different amount of pay if they decide they want to live in Kansas City instead?
Well, yeah, retroactively, of course. I mean, I get that, if you're trying to attract talent in New York City or in San Francisco or whatever, you're going to pay a bigger number for that employee if you're an employer. But then if you subsequently say, and then you can work from anywhere, and then that employee says, cool, I'm going to go move to, Montana, to say, well, if you're in Montana, then we only have to pay you this. Whoa, wait a second.
Whoa. Easy.
Yeah. That's kind of BS. But
no, there's a different way. It turns out there's a different way of thinking about this altogether. You can be a great employee, make maybe 10% more than everybody around you. If you go for merit-based raises, you may get a 3% raise. In fact, studies show that's the easiest way to make more money is to go ask your boss for a raise. That's the easiest way to solve your income problem. Study after study, year after year shows.
Part of your income problem.
Yeah. But year after year, studies show that your boss wants to give you a raise. You just haven't presented them with the facts. You haven't asked for it in a good way. But there's a different way to do that. And that's the secret that these people have, is we're increasingly working from elsewhere, OG. What if instead of being a great employee, you were a middle of the road to crappy employee for 2 different companies and didn't let them know?
Nice.
How kick-ass is that?
Well, there's a little bit of, you have some competitive, what's that called when you play for the Falcons and you say, I also won't play for the Cowboys?
Right.
You know, whatever that is. So, but it's sort of different than having a side hustle, right? I mean, if your side hustle happens to be in your same industry, it's just
happens to be a second full-time job.
Yeah. And you can pull it off. I don't see why that's a big, I worked 2 full-time jobs when I was in college. I worked at the bank and I worked at the shoe store. Both of those were 40-hour jobs. The shoe store people didn't care. They just wanted to make sure that from a schedule standpoint that I was going to be there when I said I was.
Rachel writes, they were bored or worried about layoffs or tired of working hard for a meager raise every year. They got another job offer. Now they have a secret. A small dedicated group of white-collar workers in industries from tech to banking to insurance say they found a way to double their pay. They work 2 full-time remote jobs. Don't tell anybody. And for the most part, don't do too much work either. Alone in their home offices, they toggle between 2 laptops. They play Tetris with their calendars, trying to dodge endless meetings. Can you imagine if both your bosses want to have a meeting with you at the same time?
Doctor's appointment.
Yes. Oh, man. Can we schedule that half an hour later? That'd be great.
I got the COVID.
No, that's too soon. They use paid time off in some cases, unlimited, to juggle the occasional big project or ramp up at a new gig. Many say they don't work more than 40 hours a week for both jobs combined. They've just accepted the fact that, you know what, if people can't watch me work, I'm going to go ahead and just double my pay.
Well, and this is obviously giving the work from home folks a bad name because in our business, both for Stacking Benjamins and for my planning firm, we're completely virtual. And in the planning business, we don't have vacation hours. We don't keep track of your work hours, any of that sort of stuff. We have a philosophy of work when there's work. And then if there's not work, you don't have to work. And that served us pretty well because I don't want to have the burden of like going, oh, well, I don't know if you can take vacation that week. Like that's not up to me. But we've seen lots of studies of employers who are worried about the reduction of work hours and quality of work during the pandemic, and actually it hasn't happened. So,
well,
that kind of frustrates some employers because they want people back in the office, but can't point to efficiency going down substantially.
The bad news is I was digging, I found a piece that says differently. You are right when it comes to the average just daily grind of getting it done. This is from Inc. Microsoft did a study of 60,000 employees and found that where remote work really suffers and where these people are killing the organization is when it comes to innovation.
Oh, absolutely.
And bigger collaborative projects.
Yeah, I've been working from home since we moved to Texas in 2014. Every so often I tell my wife, I say, maybe we should just get an office and get everybody back together again. Just for the camaraderie and the water cooler talk and the synergy of kind of the buzz, whatever you want to call it, of people in the same place thinking about the same stuff. There's some significant benefits to that for sure.
Look at the innovation you and I came back with just for our team here in the basement after FinCon. I mean, we've been remote since day one, but we come back from a conference like that with a bunch of ideas and streamlined things. And some of that is accidental. You just meet people in the hall and they give you a great idea that you wouldn't have if you were on a Zoom call.
Yeah, I definitely miss the in-person type stuff.
It's funny because I know there's going to be a bunch of people, though. Let's go back to the other side of this, which I know there's a bunch of people saying that these people working 2 jobs for 2 different companies and they're working 40 hours combined, they're cheating the company. But on the other side, when it comes to harder work, companies aren't really rewarding harder work in a lot of cases. In fact, one person in this piece in the Wall Street Journal says the harder you work, it seems like the less you get. One of the workers with 2 jobs said, people depend on you more and my paycheck's the same. So if I go work harder for this one organization, my boss doesn't notice it. They just lean on me more. So yay, I get ahead, not at all. In many cases, I don't get any recognition. I clearly, as we said at the top of this segment, we don't get paid a lot more for it.
Yeah.
So why do it? It feels more and more like that premonition that Tom Peters had at the beginning of this century, which sounds weird to say, but at the beginning of the century, he talked about brand you, right? You got to focus on brand you. What is your brand? If you're okay with having a mediocre brand, is this bad?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, if you've committed to and are getting paid for a certain level of output, I think it's incumbent on you to actually do the work that you're being compensated for. And if you feel like your job can be done in 25 hours instead of 40, but they're paying you for 40, I think that you should take on more responsibility or do better quality or let your boss know. Say, hey, I've got capacity. I'm trying to do everything I can at a reasonable pace, but man, I'm still only finding 25 hours worth of stuff to do every week.
Yeah.
And you guys are paying me for 40. So either pay me for 25 and then I don't feel guilty and you're saving the money, or find me something else to do where I can help the organization those other 10 or 15 hours.
This is definitely, I agree with you. This is a disconnect between employer and employee here. And the bad news is the way a lot of employers are going to try to solve this is that they're going to do all these workarounds, the spyware that you can't take off your computer so they know what you're doing and what you're looking at or how long you're at your keyboard. Or, they're going to solve it in these horrible ways.
Right.
Because it's the fast track and it's going to make nobody happy. I agree.
It just boils down to trust. When you come from a position of being trustworthy and trustful of other people, and you assume other people are adults and are doing what they should, then your solutions are a lot different than if you assume everybody's out to screw you. If you're an employer, I would encourage you to think of it from the perspective of trust and trustworthiness and say, well, hey, you're an adult and this is the work that needs to get done. And if you don't get it done, there's consequences for that. But I'm not going to sit here and stand over your desk every minute of the day to make sure that you're just hammering on the keyboard incessantly.
Hey, it's time for our TikTok Minute. This is the portion of the show where we either look at an inspirational TikTok creator or maybe we poke a little fun at them. We try to make this about 50-50. OG, today, are we going to poke fun at somebody on TikTok or are we going to be inspired?
Poke fun.
Casey sent us this one, Stacker Casey. Here we go. This is a TikTok from an app called Iris. This is Iris app on TikTok.
This is why you have to follow the politicians. It's literally that easy. Last week I made a video saying that Nancy Pelosi just filed her new investments and she bought NVIDIA. And look what happened right after she filed. And boom, just like that, when the news broke, up 11%. These smart people move markets. There's no point to not get notified when they do. And this is why we made a Nancy Pelosi profile on Iris, so that you can see what she owns and you can get notified the second she makes more filings of her investments. When you follow the smart money in investing and you don't do it alone, you typically win.
When you follow smart money and you don't do it alone, you typically win. I don't know if you know that. So what you do, you follow the politicians and what politicians are buying and using this wonderful app. That's all you got to do. You don't got to know anything.
Yeah, there's a little bit of this going around lately about how the folks in Congress don't have insider trading rules and they can do whatever it is that they want. So,
the bad news is, though, you're not getting this news the second that the politician does it, though. You're getting it based on their disclosure rules, which sometimes can be a little bit later.
Yeah, very true. And certainly don't know how the timing of that works, but I can see why people would kind of put this on their radar screen. I don't agree with it, but
you think I was going to ask you if you think it's a good strategy.
I mean, everything's a good strategy in back testing it. So, when the only reason that we're talking about it is because it's paid off, right? So in the rearview mirror, yeah, it looks like a really great idea. Whether or not this continues to be, I don't know. I'm going to stick with diversification. It's easier.
Yeah, see, I don't think so. I went back to look for in the rearview mirror if this actually works around timing. And because this app is so brand new, I don't know that they get the data quick enough to make it have an impact. Clearly, they're trying to build the case that it has an impact, but I'd like to see a lot more data before I go follow it. And then second, I also want to know what I'm buying, because I think I told you that in my Sandbox account, I was reading about some of the things that Michael Burry, the very famous investor who Christian Bale played on The Big Short, and Michael Burry bought this mining company. And so you know what I did? I just went, I know better than this. I just went and bought it, OG. I went and bought it because he had it. So if I'm buying something because Nancy Pelosi has it or Michael Burry has it, well, guess what? Now I've got something in my portfolio. You know what my problem is now? I own something. I don't know why it's there. I don't know the method behind the thinking. And when Michael Burry sells this thing, which for all I know, he might have already sold it, I'm still in it. I've got no idea. I don't have any investment policy. I got to tell you, having this mining company in my portfolio drives me crazy.
Well, I mean, this stuff has been going on for a long time. Big investors have to disclose their holdings, so you can see what Warren Buffett buys and sells every quarter. You don't get to buy and sell it on the same day as Warren Buffett does, unless he does it on the last day of the quarter type of thing. But all that information is out there. I think now there's a little bit more technology involved where people are creating Twitter bots and things that can like mine that data automatically and produce that information kind of out there. But it's already there. You just don't have the same temperament as Michael Burry. You don't have the same temperament as Warren Buffett to say, hey, I'm going to take $1 billion and put it at this idea and also be wrong for like years and years and years and then be right, So it's kind of a different angle of the X, I think.
Somebody who made a lot of money on an IPO is our next guest, Lisa Greer. She was a studio executive at NBC and Universal Studios. Her husband's company went public. All of a sudden, they had tons of money. She started working with philanthropies and saw just what an ugly, ugly world that is. And she started working to clean it up. She's got a new book out called Philanthropy Revolution. And if you're somebody thinking bigger than yourself, which is going to be a theme this week, our guest on Wednesday also talks about how thinking beyond yourself is a huge key to solving problems with sadness in your life and finding that happiness that many of us are looking for. Well, giving is a big part of that. And Lisa Greer is here to talk about it. But before we get to her, I've got a gentleman right here next to me, OG, ready to take the reins for a second. Doug, you got it, man. What are we ranting about today?
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and I'm excited about Lisa Greer coming on the show because I've been studying philanthropy myself. In fact, it was George Lucas who said back in 2010 that he was gifting the majority of his money to improving education. Based on that statement, I'm hoping that he's redoubling efforts to teach tomorrow's youth that episodes 1 and 2 of Star Wars are absolute trash and that Jar Jar Binks is an abomination. And, like George, you and I should both help lead the way towards better giving. In fact, in preparation for this show, me and some of the definitely non-creepy, thoroughly background-checked neighborhood adults worked with the neighborhood kids to pick up trash and recycle cans. All of the money we'll raise doing this actually reminds me of today's trivia question, which is the technical name for a fund that is a charitable giving vehicle administered by a public charity and created to manage charitable donations on behalf of organizations, families, and individuals. Look, I'm not repeating that. Just hit rewind and listen to it again. I'll be back with your answer faster than you can go do some good.
Navy Federal Credit Union likes to reward their members for using their credit cards. You know, OG, that if you pay your credit cards off every month like you should, well, then why not get rewards for them? Of course, don't go play the reward game if you don't pay them off every single month, because you do that math works way, way, way against you. But listen to this. You can earn up to 1.75% cash back on all your purchases with their cash rewards card when you sign up for direct deposit. And also when you use the Navy Federal mobile app, you can redeem those rewards as soon as you earn them. But here's the kicker. There's no annual fee, no balance transfer fee, and no foreign transaction fee. So you can use it anywhere. And this is another stickler. This is where they get you. It's kind of like Jim Gaffigan when he talks about ice. Oh yeah, the water's free, but you got to buy the tray. That's where they get you. That's where they get you. Well, the way they get you is rewards expire. Rewards here never expire at Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member, learn more at NavyFederal.org, insured by NCUA. Well, there's nothing that relieves stress more when you have had a long day, you are completely fried, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'll just go out to dinner. But then you think about all those calories, all that money out of your wallet, and then you realize that you can eat healthy because you found Factor. Factor is ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door so you have more time for everything you love this spring, and you don't have to worry about eating healthy and going outside your budget because you've got the food sitting there in the fridge that you had pre-planned. What is Factor? Well, Factor has meals built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support for strength and workout recovery. Check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal's crafted with functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients. No artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense foods. It's fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. I use Factor. I think you're going to love it too. Head to factormeals.com/SB50off, stackers, and use code SB50off, and you're going to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until 9/27/2026.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and me and the neighbors have been hard at work collecting and recycling our cans. You'd be surprised to know that we've already managed to collect $47.50. There's a decimal point in there somewhere, so I'll let you do the math. I know. I don't often pat myself on the back for raising huge sums of money with a decimal point in them, but in this case, I think it's well-deserved. I'm thinking a great home for this pile of cash is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So, how does this work? Do they contact me, or do I need to go through the formalities of reaching out to them? Seems like a lot of trouble if I'm giving them money. Do I have to get one of those oversized checks to present to them with photographers? Okay, all right. Since I'm being charitable, I guess I'll go ahead and reach out first. But before I go find some contact information for my new friends, old Bill and Mindy, let's get back to today's trivia. The question was, what is the name of the fund that is a charitable giving vehicle administered by public charity, created to manage charitable donations on behalf of organizations, families, and individuals? If you guessed a donor-advised fund, you'd be right. You'd also be in serious need of a hobby. Look, no one should know that off the top of their head. I am now officially creeped out by the three of you who knew that. The largest donor-advised fund sponsors include Fidelity Charitable, Schwab Charitable, and Vanguard Charitable. Fidelity Charitable says its donors recommended 2 million grants in 2020, totaling $9.1 billion, a 24% increase over 2019. Schwab Charitable said its grants totaled $3.7 billion, which was up 35%. Let's throw this over to Joe and Lisa to learn more about philanthropy.
And on my dad's shortwave radio, it's my new friend, Lisa Greer. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm great. Now that we're going to talk about philanthropy, because I feel like we don't get to talk about it enough, but especially, Lisa, with your insider knowledge about the business of philanthropy, you begin your book talking about COVID and how COVID has changed the landscape. Tell us, what does that mean? How has it changed things?
Well, it's changed it in lots and lots of ways. And obviously COVID's the worst thing ever, but there are things that came out of COVID in the world of nonprofits that I actually call slick moments, which we could apply to anything. And the slick is a silver lining in COVID. And I just made that up. And I found that that slick moments were happening all the time during COVID, and they continue to happen now. The most important thing is I think the entire nonprofit world, especially in the fundraising side, which is their lifeblood, has been doing things pretty much the same for the last actually 100 years. So the sector needed, I feel, like a big giant slap or something dramatic to happen. I hoped it wouldn't have been COVID, but that dramatic thing finally happened, which got people to realize, oh, people don't really pay with checks all the time anymore. Oh, there's these things called, online payments that we can do. Things that you would have thought people would have been doing for the last 20, 30 years, but for some reason in the nonprofit world, they just didn't. The other thing is this idea about these galas, which I'm guessing that everybody has been to a gala, has been invited to one of these kinds of things, whether it's a PTA thing at your kid's school or whatever. And everyone seemed to think over the last 20, 30, 40 years that was the way you make money. That is your big fundraiser. And it has to be in person, and it has to, have rubber chicken, and it has to have celebrities or whatever. And it has to. And what people found out is, you know what, we can raise a whole lot of money without actually having those events. There's still some people are saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we want to do an in-between and do some of those events and some not. But the idea of doing a large event for hundreds of people with the celebrities, but without the dinner, charging maybe the same amount of money and raising $1 million. If you ask people that in 3 years ago, I think they'd look at you like you were from Mars. They just didn't think that could happen. And that's exactly what happened. A lot of some organizations sat and said, we can't do a gala. We can only do them online. That's the only way we know how to do it. We're not changing. Change, scary. But then a few of them, or quite a few actually, said, you know what, let's make the most of this. And guess what they found out? They found out that, instead of one celebrity that you have to pay a bunch of money to come and do whatever it is they're doing, you can get 20 celebrities because they're just doing it from their home. And there can be from all over the world. If you're doing work for kids in Africa or Asia or the Middle East, you can have them on your screen at your event. And you couldn't do that before. And so what happened is the people who took that step kind of jumped in the water and said, okay, let's see what happens. They did really well, and many made more money than they would have had they done the traditional gala pre-COVID.
The innovation, I feel like, is across the board. We're seeing restaurants innovate. We're seeing big banks innovate. So it doesn't surprise me to see that philanthropies are also innovating. I was reading a piece that you did for Inside Philanthropy. A donor explains how not to ask for money during a pandemic. And you're somebody who, well, your life has not always been, Lisa, like it is now. And I think your story yourself is so very powerful. You begin your book talking about the first gala you went to, but even to lead into that, how did your life change around 2011? Can you tell everybody your story with money?
Sure. And there definitely is a story. I came from a very kind of traditional middle-class family in Los Angeles, and, went to public schools, went to public university, all of that kind of stuff. Our world of giving was really local. It was PTA. It was occasionally, I think I did a project when I was 12 with a CARE organization, large organization, to make something for little kids in, I think it was Africa. But that was kind of it. I don't remember going to charity events. I don't remember lots and lots of solicitations coming in, which of course is my life now. And then after many, many years of worked in the studio business, worked as a consultant, worked a number of different careers. My husband had put the very last of his money from a previous exit into this new company. He worked really hard for about 10 years. For most of that, no salary. I supported him. And then thankfully, after all of that, the company went public, and we all of a sudden found ourselves overnight being really wealthy. And it was strange. Yeah.
As an aside, and diving into the work that you did in the studios and some of the other jobs that you've done, I think would be really interesting. But his business was working with James Cameron, right?
Yeah. So what happened was in about 1996, Josh was working at a company in New York, and they were going to be doing an educational television program with a very large sponsor. And he was approached by James Cameron. He had done the Titanic IMAX program, but he hadn't done the movie yet. And he sat down with him and he said, I have this film that I want to do. It's called Avatar. He already had the script, and I want it to be all in 3D. I think that's the future. I want it to be all in 3D, and I'm only going to make it in 3D. So how can I get this out there? And Josh said, and Josh had worked at Universal Studios a long time, and that's where we met. I'm sorry, Jim Cameron, big guy, right? But you can't do that because there's only 100 IMAX theaters in the whole world, 50 of them in the US, and no one's going to greenlight or produce a film that is only in 50 theaters. It's just not going to happen. And especially, because Cameron had done Terminator and everything, it's like, oh, well, especially when you're the kind of guy who likes to spend a lot of money and do these amazing films. Josh, well, I guess you'd have to do this and this and this. And Cameron said, great, why don't you do that? And, get back to me. And I think Josh kind of was like, well, okay, now what do I do with that? And he ended up partnering with a man who had done IMAX programs. And then Josh figured out how to do this and how to make 3D, not the paper glasses. So it has to be a whole new kind of thing that basically sat on digital cinema. And digital cinema hadn't started yet. Anyway, fast forward, they do all this work. They start with a number of different little films to prove that 3D could work. And he's in touch with Cameron periodically, saying, yes, that's great, do that. So it was on my birthday in 2010 or 11. We went to London for the opening of Avatar, and people were making fun of it, saying, oh, it's going to be like the new Smurf movie because it's these blue people and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, we'll see what happens. And it was this huge hit. I remember going back to the hotel, looking at Rotten Tomatoes and watching the numbers, and it was like 100%. Oh my God, this really might work. It was really amazing. But that's kind of when things changed. And then,
I was thinking that
the accomplishment had been made.
Yeah, we've all worn those glasses now, Lisa, 100 times, right?
Yes, and I have extras at home if you'd like.
I bet you. I bet you do. So your life then changes literally overnight because of the IPO. And now you two both decide we want to make a big gift to something that we really care about. And so your story opens with one of these big galas that, as you mentioned, a lot of people have been to these. Maybe a lot of us haven't. Can you describe that night and describe what happens? Because I think that this clearly sets the scene for the revolution you think needs to happen in philanthropy.
So this was about a year, I think, after the IPO. So we went to this event, a large community organization here in Los Angeles. I want to say there were 500 people there. I get a call the day before, and they said, we just want to let you know you're sitting at the table with the head of the organization.
Awesome.
Thought, oh, well, hey, that's pretty cool. So we'll have a really good table. You'll be able to see the celebrities that are performing. But we hadn't really been to these kinds of things before. I mean, I'd been maybe as a volunteer, or we'd been sitting at the really back table, but this was interesting. I want to say this event was in March, and we had given them a donation in November. It wasn't large, it wasn't gigantic, and it wasn't tiny, but it was a significant donation. We sat down at the table and we had dinner, and I thought, okay, this is really nice. And about midway during the event, I see these little things, these vinyl covers that look like where you put your credit card and the check-in at a restaurant. And all of a sudden, one appears on my plate. And I thought, that's interesting. What's happening now? So I kind of thought, I guess they're going to ask me for something. And Josh gets one too. He's next to me. And this guy is on the other side of me. And I open up this thing, and it's not even typed. It's like an old mimeograph machine kind of page that says on it the amount that we gave that previous November. But it doesn't say November. It says 20, whatever it is, the year before. And the rest of the page is blank. And I thought, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. And then on the stage, they say, well, now it's time to look down at the thing that's just been put on your plate. And everybody does that. And Josh has it too. And they say the same amount. They're duplicates, but they each have our own name on them. He leans over to us and he says, so this is your pen. You need to write in the higher amount that you're now going to give for this year. I thought, well, wait, it's March. I gave 5 months ago, and Josh has the same amount. Do you want us each to give more than that now? And you're telling us to do this and not telling us to do this. And it's March. And basically, because I gave the money at the end of the year last year, it doesn't count. And this is a whole new year. And that's exactly what they meant. And I was mortified. And I don't even know if I wrote anything. Whenever I see those little covers at a restaurant, I still get kind of the creeps.
Just the public nature of it and kind of the public shaming if you don't do it, Lisa, is what made my stomach turn. And also the fact that this is common. People look at their donors like they're ATM machines, you write.
Yeah, I think they look at is we're just a big dollar sign. And that's what they kind of see. My new analogy really is that they really would prefer we were a piggy bank, because a piggy bank is an inanimate object that doesn't talk back. And you can, and the piggy bank's full of money. And so you like that, wait, and then you can walk over the piggy bank with a hammer and you just smash the piggy bank, take the money and run as fast as you can. And that is fundraising and philanthropy for many people. And that's horrible.
It is horrible. What was equally as horrible is your husband also had a philanthropy that he wanted to give to, that he felt strongly about. They did exactly the opposite. They didn't know what to do with you, Lisa.
Well, my husband has Crohn's disease. He didn't want anybody else to have it. It's a horrible disease, if any of you know anyone who has it. And he'd had most of his surgeries at our hospital here. I said, let's each pick something we want to do. I picked my thing, and he picked his thing that he wanted to find out who did the best research in the world or in the country that could make sure that other people didn't have to go through what he went through, and especially as a child. I said, great. He says, I'll let you figure it out. He said, why don't you call Stanford? Because he figured Stanford equals research. And I said, yeah, but we're in LA and all of your surgeries have been here, and this is where your doctors are. Maybe they do research. Turns out they do tons of research. They just don't promote it at all. So we went there and nobody knew who we were. And it took 7 months for them to accept $2 million from us.
7 months.
7 months. And me calling every month or two, we'd have a meeting. And then the guy would be like, oh, I have to do this meeting, whatever. And he'd give us these numbers to try and scare us. And I'd say, oh, okay, any of those are fine. And he says, okay, I'll get back to you. And then we literally wouldn't hear from him probably ever unless I called. And so a lot of people will say, well, you're a different kind of donor. And I say, no, I'm a very, very typical donor. The only thing that's different about me is I don't know anybody else who would wait 7 months to have somebody accept $2 million from them. It was really crazy.
Yeah, just take my money, please. It
was unbelievable. The good news about it that I have to tell you is that some organizations learn from their mistakes really well. And I found out as I was writing the book, actually, that Cedars-Sinai, the hospital, had made this story part of their onboarding program for all their development people, all their fundraisers, so that it never happened again to anybody. And I thought that was great.
Well, let's dive into that, because clearly this isn't working for the philanthropies themselves. You write that the average tenure of a director of development is 18 months. So clearly it's not working for these people either, Lisa. They're hating what they're doing. They can't stay around in this process. You also write that only 19% of donors have trust in the philanthropies that are around them. So I guess the tip of that iceberg, where do we begin on solving that disconnect?
So part of this is very, very simple. Where you begin is realizing that people are not piggy banks or ATM machines, and that we're all living, breathing human beings. I think it's People Are Us magazine that has a section on, celebrities, they're just like us, or they put on their pants one leg at a time. It's the same thing. If a fundraiser realizes that they also are a donor and everybody's given something to somebody, and how would they feel if somebody said to them the things they're saying to prospects? So really the overarching premise is, and it sounds so basic, I get crazy emails, and sometimes I'll call the organization if I know someone there, and I'll say, this email is completely off-putting. It's the end of our quarter. Send money now. And I'm like, it's not my problem that you didn't make it to your quarter. I mean, that has nothing to do with the impact. It's one of my big tips is whenever you're sending out a mass email to people, some sort of fundraising thing, send it to yourself first the day before. Make sure you wait until you've got 50 emails in there. Look at all those emails and ask yourself, would you open that email? That works really, really well, actually, for them, because most of the time they wouldn't. You cancel your email thing. You don't say, we've already paid the company, we have to send it. You actually redo the email to something that sounds appealing to somebody, but not in a pushy way that you personally would open. And forget that they're asking for $10,000 or $1 million. Think that they're asking for $5. And that is a big problem with nonprofits today, is that the people who give $5 or $25 are relegated to like the cheap seats. And there isn't a consideration that those people in the cheap seats might just love what you do and may have some other money, probably do, might come into some other money at some point and might become a bigger donor for you. That doesn't happen. If you are an under $1,000 donor in those cases, you are put into a completely different category than everybody else. And this is something that I just discovered recently. If you're a recurring donor, so all of us probably have something where you give somebody a credit card and you get charged every month for it, or every year, something like that. So if you do that for an organization and you give them $100 a month, okay, which is a great way to support an organization. And for the organization, it's great. So two things that are crazy about it. One is I talked to someone the other day who said that he didn't want to accept those kinds of donations. Why? Because when the credit card expires, it's too hard to get the new number from the person.
Oh, Lord.
Right? That is like arcane. That's crazy. And the other thing I learned is that if you're a $100 a month person and you've given for 3 years, that's $3,600. You're still kept in the under $1,000 group, and they treat you accordingly. That's crazy too. So I find myself saying that's crazy often in this world. And so I'm trying to change it.
Well, once again, it's treating people like just a wallet or a piggy bank where they have so much money to give and that's it. Just thinking about people according to these groups that they fall in. And I love what you're saying about nurturing donors. A lot of these people, millennials and Gen Z, so many studies, as you have seen, Lisa, show that these people want to give. And they start small, and you've got this huge generational wealth transfer happening. These people are going to be your future donors of tomorrow.
Right. And so maybe don't treat them like crap today. That's, maybe first thought, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a story that illustrates how you really like to be treated. And it's this gentleman, David Levinson from Big Sunday. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I think he kind of is almost the model for that. There's been a lot of articles on him doing that. And this is a guy who was a screenwriter, TV writer, who was doing a volunteer thing at his synagogue, and it turned into a massive citywide and now almost statewide event. And it was called Big Sunday. They would do it on one Sunday a year. Now it goes on, I think every day they have something going on, and it's fantastic. I kept hearing about starving people in our city and that the food banks were running out of food. So I called around and I said, who knows kind of all the social service organizations in town? And they said, this guy, David Levinson. So I called him and I said, I'd love to meet with you. And so he came over and I said, look, here's our deal. Here's where we come from. I want to know how I can fix this. And I know I can't fix this in a big way, what can I do? And he says, I don't know. What are you thinking? I said, well, here's my idea. You have to do a program. And I said, I don't want to do a program. I just want to get food into people's hands. So why don't you tell me how much it would cost to feed everybody who's hungry in Los Angeles, or fill up the food banks for everyone in Los Angeles for 3 months. And I just picked that out of nowhere. And he said, okay, I'll find out. I don't know the answer. So number one, him saying, I don't know the answer as opposed to BSing me with something was brilliant. And those are the actual really wonderful parts of my day, when somebody actually says, I don't know, let me find out. So thank you.
When somebody not BSing you is where the bar is, Lisa. The bar is fairly low.
Yes, that is exactly where the bar is, actually. So he goes away. He calls me about 2 weeks later, and he says, can I come over and meet with you again? And I said, sure. And I don't require in-person meetings, but I thought it was nice. So we sit down at the table, and he says, so I've been doing some studying. I said, great. So what's the number? And he said, I'm not going to give you the number. Okay, number two great thing that he did, right? Actually having the chutzpah to say, I'm not going to give it to you, and not worry that I'm going to run around and scream or cut his head off, right? So yes, he's treating me like a person, just like a normal person. And he said, well, I realized that by doing that, the food's going to be gone after 3 months, and there's nothing sustainable about it. And I think we could take the same money that you're talking about, that you might be talking about, and we might put into that and put it into a program, but put it into a program that can be supported by other members of the community here long term. And he hired one person. I might have one or two people now doing it, but it kind of doesn't run itself completely, but mostly. And the idea is that people every month, they would say, okay, we're collecting canned tuna this month for the food banks. So they go into the community and they say, and everybody, they'll go to churches and schools, and they'll go to bank offices did this. And the cast of some TV show actually decided to do this. It's a one-time thing. This month, everyone's going to bring cans of tuna. And if you don't want to bring cans of tuna, you can give us money and we'll buy the tuna. And then we will take it all over to the food banks, and they will have tuna for a year, right? Which was great. And it was so successful that people all over were like, well, I want to be in the noodle month, and I want to be in the this month, and whatever. And then it got to be Thanksgiving, and everybody everywhere wanted to do it. And now they feed gazillions of people. And it's been going on for, I think, about 9 years now.
So your money became seed money, which created this attention from other people that made them want to do it too, which is, I would think this multiplier money is the most powerful money of all.
It is absolutely the most powerful money of all. It's that exponential piece is phenomenal. And I've seen it happen when we gave the $2 million to Cedar Sinai. It's an endowed share. And so the endowments put off typically 5% a year. So $2 million puts off 5% a year. So they get $100,000 a year that they can work with, which I thought, well, what are you going to do with $100,000 in a medical thing? That's probably not going to get you far. And so I didn't have high expectations. This was one doctor who wanted to do this work in IBD, irritable bowel disease genetics, like the genetics of that, so we could stop that. Now it's been 9 or 10 years, and he has 25 people working for him in a research lab. They've come up with dozens of different ways of solving different things. They do personalized medicine with this. And I didn't understand, how does that $100,000 turn into that? Turns out he was then able to go to foundations and say, look, we have a private party who came forward and gave us this money. I think he got $1 million on top of the 100,000. Because of the 100,000, someone gave $1 million like 3 months later. Yeah. And I thought, that is amazing. So it's the exponential piece is not to be ignored. That's really wonderful.
I'm thinking about this from our listeners' point of view. A lot of people that listen to the show, we talk a lot about donor advised funds. I got the feeling reading your book that donor advised funds, while you admit that they're pretty awesome for people to put money away for the future, that you find them pretty frustrating.
Yes, I think they're an excellent tool. By the way, a lot of times people take the money from their, usually it's appreciated stock. They put the money in pre-tax money, and they put it in a donor advised fund, and they are able to then get the tax deduction right at that moment. The money sits in the fund, often gains interest, and also has a fee that's attached to it for the organization to manage it. And then when you decide you want to give money to an organization, you just contact the donor advised fund. I do it from my cell phone. And even if I'm in the middle of a meeting, I can be sitting there with my cell phone saying, this sounds really good. I'm going to give you $500. And it takes me about a minute, and I can poke a few keys on my cell phone, and the money immediately there's a confirmation that says, yes, you're going to be getting a check from the donor advised fund. It's always subject to the fund. And if you want to hear when that doesn't work, you can read about it in the book, because it is up to the fund to decide if they want to accept the place that you want to give to. Now, in some cases, Fidelity and Vanguard and some of those big companies, they'll just put it through as long as they're a 501c3 in good standing. But there are some other organizations that are treated differently under this new legislation that actually get to put their own personal viewpoints in to decide if they want to send that payment on or not. There's some ways around it. I can, as of now, I can move the money from that fund to another fund that will accept it. But that was a big surprise for me because it's an advised fund. It actually isn't your money anymore. For me, being able to sit at a meeting and say, I'm going to do this, and I don't have to write a check. I don't have to do anything at the end of the year because all of my giving happens that way. And so I get an itemized list from them. It's awesome. I love it. The downside of it is that there are people who put their money in and there is no time frame by which you have to give the money onto a charity.
Yeah.
So the downside is that, that's something that is growing exponentially. And right now there's about $150 billion sitting in these donor advised funds. And where a lot of the big companies will say, no, don't get mad at us. We have lots of money going out. Well, what they never talk about in those announcements is how much money is going in. It was growing at 16 or 17% the last time I looked. So it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So the problem is that a lot of people say, oh, those people just want to have their money and get the tax deduction. They never want to give it to a charity. And I don't believe that people are that awful. So I think the reason might be that perhaps those people had a first meeting with somebody like any of the people I just mentioned. And it was so off-putting because they were trying to dip their toe into the water and say, what's it like to give? And the meeting was so off-putting and offensive that they said, screw it, I'm going to leave the money to my cat. And in the meantime, I'll just put it in my donor advisor.
Yeah, no, I totally agree when you say that they really don't know who to trust. And you look at the rating services that are out there now to evaluate charitable giving. I feel like most of the rating services are around fees in the amount that they spend, right? So how do we evaluate who we should trust with this money that we built up in a donor advised fund or money that we want to give? What kind of questions should we be asking, Lisa, to make a decision?
Right. So thank you for that question. It's an excellent one. So first of all, the rating services have started to understand that what they were doing and just basing everything on how much, the tax return and how much money they spend on admin costs. A couple of them, I think Candid is the big one that's first did this, started also creating a rating system on impact, which I think is wonderful. So that's a really great first step. And that is something that pretty much everybody I know wants to know. I don't care if it costs money to get there. I just want to know that ultimately something good is going to happen at the end and there's going to be some impact. So I think that with the admin cost thing, really the first place that I think it needs to change is with the fundraisers who are there trying to raise the money. And like you just said, I want those people to be knowledgeable. If you're going to be investing money, you want to know, what's the investment going to do for me other than bring me back more money? Like what actually happens to this money? And one of the questions that I always ask whenever I'm doing any kind of even for-profit investing is, who's your competition? And my other question is, how well do you play with others? So do you have partnerships? And you would ask that in for-profit, nonprofit, those would be normal questions.
I only have two more questions. You talk late in the book about boards and oversight of the organization. Are there questions we should be asking about what type of oversight does a charitable organization have, or how does the board work?
Yeah, I think it's a great question to ask. I think that they do have turnover. Some of them have term limits, which I think they should. And it is something great to get involved in and learn how those work. I'll give my favorite example. I think it's in the book, is I was on the board of a large national organization, the local chapter actually. And at one of the board meetings, everybody's decided to go around the room and talk about why they were on the board, which I think is an excellent thing to do, until you find out that 3/4 of the people in the room say that they're there to make friends. And I thought, oh, that's not good.
I'm lonely.
And lonely, exactly. They were very straightforward about it. In fact, one of the big things that I'm a proponent of is mergers, is having less of these organizations around that do the same thing, and everybody can be more unique and they can be stronger, and two together can actually, again, exponentially be a much better organization. One of the big reasons is the boards can't stand it, because if you're there to make friends, that's your social circle. Don't take that away from me. And that has nothing to do with the mission and nothing to do with why they're there and nothing to do with why donors give money. And I find that offensive. So I think it's very important. And I do a lot of work with boards, helping them to put together the right kind of board. It needs to be diverse. Someone told me a story recently about going to a board of a girls' organization in Washington, D.C. You probably already guessed the punchline. And it was all men. What the heck?
You know how many people are screaming at their device right now as you say that, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. And I do a lot of that every day, actually, when I hear these crazy stories. At the beginning, I thought, well, maybe I just get more of them because I'm more out there or something. But there is no shortage of information to start reacting to, because every day I hear something or see something or get a crazy email or a pitch that doesn't make any sense, or somebody who sends me an email to, Dear John Greer, or something like that, doesn't even get my name right. Or my favorite thing is this new thing that some of the direct mail people, consultants, I guess, came up with in the last year, where you send somebody a bill it says second notice, in red, like the stamp and the whole thing. And that's how they're getting money from you.
Oh, my.
Isn't that? And you're supposed to just pay it because you think it's a second notice and you've got to pay the bill. Like, well, and then you talk about trust. Like, well,
right.
Yeah, if that's going on, of course people aren't going to trust these organizations.
Yeah. How do you expect me to feel kindly about you when you're sending me third notice for something that's voluntary?
Yeah, it's really totally unbelievable.
When you and Larissa Kostoff created this book, did you find there was anything surprising just in this act of creating this and putting all your thoughts down on paper?
Yes. One of the surprises was it was both easier and harder than I thought it would be. I'd never done this before. What I did is I recorded my rants, like kind of a little bit of what I just gave you, and I recorded them for months on my phone. And that's what was really the genesis of the book, because I said, oh, what am I going to do with all of these? And originally I was ranting to friends, and I thought that was not very nice for me to keep ranting to friends every day when this stuff happens. So putting it all down, the big surprise was I realized that I had way more than one book could handle.
Yeah.
And which kind of was a little bit disturbing, actually. And I thought, well, I've really got to fine tune this. I also learned that some of the things that had happened to me early in being a philanthropist still were painful. And I think I was surprised that I hadn't gotten over those, which was a little bit surprising. And even now, when I talk about some of those things from the book and I'll read the chapter, I'm thinking, I can't believe that one stupid thing that somebody said, or way that someone treated me, or guy that yelled at me at a board meeting, or person who commented on my handbag and it was a cheap thing that wasn't anything, and I knew it was all just pandering. Those things still bother me. Then you start getting emails from people all over the world and saying it changed my life. And, I've always agreed with, at fundraisers saying, I knew that was the right way to do things, but my bosses keep wanting me to do it the old way. And now I feel like I've got this book. I can say, you know what, I'm not wrong. And then the donors were saying to me, oh my God, I thought I was the only one that this stuff happened to. And so I get lots of emails from donors saying that I'm the new sort of group therapy through a book for them. So all of that was incredibly gratifying, and I'm really glad I did it.
That's fantastic. Well, I absolutely loved it. And it's so just everything that you talked about trust. And in your first statement there about the hurt that you felt early on, just I think should show anybody raising money for anything, just how important it is that you take that trust that you have with donors and potential donors. The book is called Philanthropy Revolution: How to Inspire Donors, Build Relationships, and Make a Difference. And I'm assuming, Lisa, it's available everywhere, right?
Everywhere, and Audible and digital and all sorts of things. Yes. Wherever you want to go, you'll find it.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us and talking about trust and about giving. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Derek, and when I'm not working on the hook for Joe's mom's next greatest rap album, I'm stacking Benjamins, baby.
Big thanks to Lisa. You've had a similar experience, OG?
Yeah, a little bit. Certainly not at the level that she is at, but one of the places that we regularly donate money to.
Put a little pressure on you?
Yeah, just a little bit. A little thumb on the scale.
It doesn't.
Like, hey, why don't we go out to dinner? Let's go out to dinner. We can talk. I'm like, I don't need to talk. I read your letter. I see what you're going to spend all the money on. Also, I despise meetings for the sake of having meetings. So it's like, you got to read your audience, man. Like, you don't get me to the table with a meeting.
Well, and you're also not attracted to the shiny bauble thing versus what the mission is. Like, I agree with her. Let's talk about the mission more. Don't send me to this fancy soiree and not talk at all about the mission. Why do philanthropies insist on doing it that way? Are we that shallow?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of that. I think a little bit of look at how important I am. I went to the such and such of charitable ball, or whatever. I got dressed up fancy, and the table that I was at raised $1 million for children's cancer. That's how important I am.
I ate very well, and I helped somebody else while taking care of me.
Yes. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Just tell me what you want the money for. Make sure it goes in the right place.
I also agree with her on another front, which is looking at a 501c3 that is working on a shoestring budget is probably not the place you want to give your money. You have to have good people to accomplish a mission, which means I think you got to do more research than just, hey, how much of this is going to salaries?
Well, and I know that that's an issue, is trying to figure out like where that break even is. Because you do need people to run it. You do need people out there whose job it is to raise the money, right? And yet if it's too much, then they get a lot of grief on the other side of that equation, right? Where it's like, well, 10% of your money goes to salaries and maintenance of your building, like, or whatever the number is. So it's got to be reasonable, but you definitely need to have good people working for you. Otherwise, the thing doesn't get done.
All right, that's going to do it for today. Hey, a lot of people to thank. Thanks so much to you for all of the reviews that you've given us for the show. That has been fantastic. By the way, I am not done sending out books. So if you're wondering if I'm sending you a book for your review, the answer is most probably. For people that gave us one late, we said that we put your name in a hat. I think I have enough books, OG, to send everybody one. I've been doing a lot of traveling, so it has been a slow go. But if you're wondering, what's this about books? If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, please don't make a book be the reason why you do. But if you were going to give us a review anyway, just take a picture of it, send it to me, and I'd be happy to send you a thank you for helping other stackers learn what it's all about to be a stacker. Great reviews like this one. I love this one when you can convert another stacker. Listen to this. 40066 wrote, converted my wife. This podcast went from me asking my wife if I could play a personal finance podcast on car trips together, to her saying that it's okay if I played Stacking Benjamins, to her asking if we could listen to Stacking Benjamins, and finally to her insisting that I save episodes so she can listen to them in the car too. She's not into podcast or personal finance, but she can't get enough of SB. That's how entertaining Stacking Benjamins is. How kick-ass is that?
Nice.
Bam. That is fantastic. Thanks so much for that review. And if you have a moment to tell other people, that definitely helps other people know just what a great community we have here of people helping other people with their money. All right. That's going to do it for today. Last but not least, if you want to make better decisions in the future, you want to dream bigger, head to stackingbenjamins.com/OG. That's the interface where you'll see OG's team's calendar. Their team is taking clients. So having the right people in your corner makes all the difference. stackingbenjamins.com/OG to see if his team is the right team for you. Doug, come on back, man. Here you go. What should we have learned today?
So what should we have learned today? First, take some advice from Lisa Greer. Maybe skip the big dinners and parties and instead have frank conversations with the places you're giving. Who are their partners? What's the actual work they're doing? We all give better when we're more involved. Second, while maybe having 2 jobs isn't the ethical answer to your money problems, at least asking for a raise can be, and there's also nothing wrong with starting that side hustle as long as you're putting in the required time and effort for boss number 1. But the big lesson? Bill and Melinda haven't returned my call. So I thought I'd research to see what's maybe distracting them. And I guess they've got a couple other things going on. I mean, probably not taking my calls because they're sitting with their lawyers. But I'll find someone to take my money, and it sure as hell isn't going to be a lawyer. To learn more about our guests and for more resources, check out our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. To learn more about philanthropy, be sure to check out Lisa Greer's new book, Philanthropy Revolution: How to Inspire Donors, Build Relationships, and Make a Difference. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2021, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Our producer is Karen Rapine. The show is written by Taylor Stevens with help from Joe and Doc G from the Earn and Invest podcast. After you listen, check out our show notes page written by our website manager and blog editor, Brooke Miller. Brooke and Joe also collaborate on a guide to the show and with lots of extras we couldn't include on today's podcast. Heck, they'll also throw in some life money lessons from Joe, and it's all free. It's called The Stacker, and you'll find it at stackingbenjamins.com/stacker. Once we get all of this goodness bottled up, it goes over to our engineer, the amazing Steve Stewart, who helps the rest of our team sound nearly as good as I do right now. Want to talk about the show later? Mom's friend Gertrude is the room mother in our Facebook group, The Basement. She also is our social media coordinator, so say hello when you see us posting online. Here's a weird fact. She and Tina Eichenberg are never in the same room at the same time. For a URL that'll take you right to our Facebook group, by the way, type stackingbenjamins.com podcast.com/basement. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, leaving you with this safety tip. Don't substitute your gym's spin class with your dryer's spin cycle. Believe it or not, they are not the same.
Welcome to the after show. A lot of the time on the after show on Mondays and Wednesdays, we talk about movies. Did anything funny happen in Austin?
Not really, but I've been watching a few programs.
Oh.
Programs. I've been watching some programs.
What you been watching?
I'm kind of caught up now on season 5.5 of Billions. So that's still trucking along, which is great, like always. And the new Showtime special.
Hold on a second. I got a question for you before you get to that. My brother-in-law and I were online playing some Outriders on the Xbox together. Fun game, not a phenomenal game, but a fun game to just hang out and chat. And we hadn't done it in a long time, so that was nice. But while we were, out there ridding the world of this bad stuff, we were chatting. He just started Billions, and he said it isn't as good as Succession. He actually likes Succession better than Billions. And I know that you've watched both of them. And I told him that you thought, and that's why I'm asking you now, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I got the impression that you thought the opposite. Succession is fine. It's okay. It's good. But Billions is what you like way better.
I think that the writing in both of them is really quite good. I find Billions more believable than Succession. The argument that they're having in Succession about the family and, the dynamics of that and, whatever is a little off of the believability scale, but it's different. Like Billions is just about Axe and Rhodes. It's about those two characters and all the people that support them. And
for people that don't know Billions, one is on the side of the law. The other one is a bajillionaire.
Yeah, hedge fund manager.
They're constantly fighting each other.
Yeah, and then when they're not, they still are. When they're on the same team, they're still against each other. I mean, it's just very interesting on how they tell that story. So I'm on Team Billions on that argument. I have talked to other people who've said that they, got a season or two into it and are kind of like, whatever. But it gets better as it goes on, I think. Just the writing gets sharper. And Succession's good too, although it's a lot darker. Succession is a lot darker than Billions.
That's funny.
Yeah.
He really wanted me to watch a show called The Patriot, which is now a couple of years old. It is about a guy who is an assassin for the United States government. He does this secret stuff and everything goes FUBAR immediately on his job. And just as an aside, as an outlet, this guy plays a guitar, but he gets very honest when he performs, and he likes to perform at open mic nights. In fact, in one episode, somebody had to get him off the stage that was in on it. They walk in and he's on stage performing in front of like 12 people going, "I didn't mean to kill the Iranian terrorist, but you made me." You made he's just, and everybody in the place is looking at him like, man, that's a wildly specific lyric.
I know.
I'm working for the CIA and I had to kill the terrorist. They're like, wow, that's not the Edmund Fitzgerald, it's a whole different thing. But talk about dark. I think he really likes these dark shows. In fact, he asked me, he's like, so what'd you think of The Patriot? I'm like, okay, I'm 3 episodes in. I don't know if I can hang out with it because it's so damn dark. Definitely funny, but holy moly, just painful. So I think it depends on where you come at it from. I just started a new show called The Chair on Netflix, and I didn't expect it to be as funny as it is. And maybe I'll do a review of that one later. But Billions and Succession, huh?
I got a new one too. If you're open to a new one,
yeah, let's do it.
American Rust.
American Rust. It looks like this is on Showtime.
That's right.
And let's listen to a trailer.
Man can have two reasons for doing the right thing. You'd rather I left you out of this going forward. I get it. No hard feelings. But I got a right to know.
I'm going to the river where the current rushes by.
Really, what kind of trouble are you in?
I have to handle this my own way.
I'm going to the river where the current rushes by.
Are we ever going to see each other again?
Hand of God coming from the sky.
Just do your job, and I'll watch out for you.
Hand of God coming from the sky.
Because I love you. This case is poisoning my town.
Someone's probably gonna have to take the blame for this. Your interests are opposed. If I help one, it could mean harming the other.
I don't care who else is looking for him. I want him first.
Wow. Holy cow. Talk about high stakes. You can hear it in that trailer, OG. Everybody's got a ton on the line there. Of course, you heard Jeff Daniels, who is just such an iconic actor and can change. I don't know. He plays so many different personalities. I saw him last in a series called Godless, which I can highly recommend, where every time he came on screen, you knew something horrible was going to happen because he was just a loose cannon in that. And here it looks like he's the sheriff.
Yep. He's the lawman in this town in West Virginia, I guess. And he's kind of the one in charge. There's an opening scene where obviously the town's kind of down on its luck. And there's an auction going on. So auction for the properties. And one of the main characters' house has got a big sign on the front, slapped on, says you foreclosed, auction, whatever. And so they're doing the auction in the town square. There's all the investors there, getting ready to bid on it. The auctioneer's telling about how great this property is, 5 acres and that stuff. And all the townspeople show up and kind of park their pickup trucks around this whole auction and get out carrying their hunting rifles. And just stand there. Just standing there. And, you can see the investors are kind of looking around. And then one of the guys goes up to one of the investors and says, hey, I hear you're thinking about buying Billy's property. Boy, that's a nice property. Do you ever do any hunting? This is a pretty nice gun, right? And like kind of obviously intimidating the investors. They all scatter to the wind. The auctioneer.
Somebody gets it for $1.
No, the auctioneer kind of gets all ticked off and the sheriff's standing there, Jeff Daniels. And he says, you can do anything about that? He says, group of my townspeople rightfully congregating to show off their hunting rifles. I don't see any crime. So, and then he says, well, I'll make sure that Deputy Stonehouse that shows you out of town. And he says, are you kicking me out? He goes, no, sir, but that's an awful nice BMW you got there. And I'd hate for anything to happen to you while you're in our town.
Wow.